Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to carry a weight that was never yours to begin with? Think about it. How many nights have you stayed awake trying to figure out someone else's life? How many conversations have you replayed in your mind, wondering what you should have said to make them change? How many times have you sacrificed your own peace because you believed it was your responsibility to rescue someone who wasn't asking to be rescued? We convince ourselves it's called love. We call it loyalty. We call it caring. But what if it's something else? What if the greatest obstacle to your own growth isn't the people around you? It's your belief that you're responsible for fixing them. Because the truth is, and this truth has the power to change your life forever, you can offer guidance, you can offer kindness, you can stand beside someone in their darkest moments, but you cannot live their life for them. The moment you stop carrying burdens that were never yours, you don't become selfish, become free. And today, I want to show you why the most powerful way to change the people around you isn't by trying to fix them at all. One of the hardest lessons any of us will ever learn is that letting go and giving up are not the same thing, even though they feel painfully similar in the moment. Somewhere along the way, many of us began to believe that caring means carrying, that loving someone means taking responsibility for every decision they make, every mistake they repeat, every consequence they refuse to face, and every battle they choose not to fight. We step into lives that were never ours to control because it feels uncomfortable to watch someone struggle. We answer calls we don't have the energy to answer, solve problems that never belong to us, lose sleep over choices we didn't make, and convince ourselves that if we just explain one more time, forgive one more time, sacrifice one more time, or stay one more day, something will finally change. But there comes a moment when you have to ask yourself a difficult question. Are you helping someone grow, or are you protecting them from the very lessons that could transform them? Growth has always required responsibility. Wisdom has always come from experience. Strength has never been borrowed from another person. It has been built by walking through discomfort. Every challenge that someone avoids today becomes an even greater challenge tomorrow, and every consequence that someone else removes becomes another reason to avoid changing. That is why rescuing people over and over again often creates the very weakness we are trying to eliminate. It feels compassionate in the short term, but over time it quietly steals confidence, accountability, and independence. Real care does not remove every obstacle from another person's path. Real care believes they are capable of walking through those obstacles themselves. Think about the moments that changed your own life. Chances are they were not the easiest moments. They were the moments when life demanded more from you than you thought you had to give. They were the moments when excuses stopped working, when comfort disappeared, when there was no one left to blame, and when the only direction available was forward. Those moments probably felt unfair while you were living through them, yet looking back, they became the very experiences that shaped your character. Imagine if someone had removed every one of those struggles before you had the chance to face them. You might have avoided temporary pain, but you also would have missed permanent growth. That is the paradox so many people never recognize. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to interrupt another person's journey. That does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean pretending not to care. It does not mean walking away with anger or resentment. It means understanding the difference between standing beside someone and carrying them on your back. One creates partnership, the other creates dependence. There is a quiet strength in allowing people to own their decisions. It takes far more courage to watch someone learn than it does to constantly intervene. Our instinct is always to protect, but protection has limits. At some point, protection becomes prevention. And instead of protecting someone from pain, we prevent them from becoming stronger than the pain. That is where healthy boundaries become an expression of love rather than rejection. Boundaries are often misunderstood because they are seen as walls that keep people out, when in reality, they are lines that keep relationships healthy. They say, I respect you enough to let you make your own choices, and I respect myself enough not to lose my own peace in the process. There is nothing selfish about refusing to carry responsibilities that belong to someone else. In fact, when you stop trying to control what you cannot control, you create more space to become the person you were meant to be. Too many people spend years managing the emotions, reactions, and expectations of everyone around them while neglecting the one life they actually have the power to shape. Think about how much energy disappears every day into worrying about people who have no intention of changing. Think about how many conversations happen over and over again without producing a single different result. Think about how often hope becomes an excuse for postponing reality. Hope is beautiful when it inspires action. Hope becomes destructive when it replaces action. Believing someone can change is not the same as believing you can change them. Those are two completely different ideas, and confusing them leads to endless frustration. Every meaningful change begins with a personal decision. Nobody can borrow determination. Nobody can borrow discipline. Nobody can borrow responsibility. Those qualities appear only when someone chooses them. Until then, every lecture, every sacrifice, every emotional plea eventually runs into the same invisible wall. You cannot force awareness into someone who refuses to see. You cannot force commitment into someone who enjoys excuses. You cannot force maturity into someone who avoids responsibility. The more you try, the more exhausted you become because you are investing energy where there is no willingness to receive it. Letting go is not abandoning people. It is releasing the illusion that your effort alone can transform another human being. It is trusting that everyone has their own timing, their own lessons, and their own responsibility. Some people learn quickly. Others need years. Some only change after facing consequences they spent their entire lives avoiding. Those consequences are not always punishments. Often they are teachers. They reveal truths that no conversation ever could. They expose patterns that advice never managed to break. They create clarity where comfort created denial. If someone never experiences the results of their own decisions, they never have a reason to question those decisions. That is why allowing consequences to exist is often one of the most compassionate things you can do. Compassion without accountability becomes permission. Kindness without honesty becomes avoidance. Support without boundaries becomes exhaustion. You deserve relationships where care flows in both directions, where encouragement is mutual, where respect is shared, and where responsibility is not carried by only one person. Imagine what becomes possible when you stop spending your life chasing people who are running away from themselves. Imagine how much creativity returns, how much peace returns, how much confidence returns when your energy is invested in your own purpose instead of someone else's resistance. You begin waking up without carrying emotional burdens that were never yours. You begin making decisions based on your values instead of someone else's chaos. You begin realizing that your presence can inspire people, but your presence cannot replace their choices. There is incredible freedom in accepting that every person owns their own story. You can encourage, listen, love, forgive, and believe in someone without becoming responsible for the ending of that story. In fact, people often discover their greatest strength only after realizing no one else can live their life for them. That realization can be uncomfortable, but discomfort is not the enemy. Comfort has never guaranteed growth. Discomfort has introduced people to abilities they never knew they possessed. When you stop interfering with every difficult moment, you allow resilience to emerge. When you stop solving every problem, you allow creativity to emerge. When you stop removing every consequence, you allow responsibility to emerge. And when you stop believing that love requires constant rescue, you finally discover a healthier definition of love itself, one built not on control, but on trust, not on fear, but on respect, not on endless sacrifice, but on the confidence that every individual has the capacity to choose a different path whenever they are truly ready. And until that day arrives, your role is not to become smaller so someone else can remain comfortable, nor to lose your identity trying to save another life while neglecting your own, but to continue showing kindness without surrendering your peace, offering compassion without abandoning your boundaries, extending support without accepting responsibility for choices that are not yours, because caring deeply and letting go are not opposite ideas at all. They become possible at the same moment you understand that love reaches its healthiest form when it encourages growth instead of replacing it, when it believes in another person's potential without trying to control the pace of their journey, and when it allows both people in the relationship the dignity to carry their own lives, their own lessons, and their own future.